What's up, everybody? Welcome back to a live recording of the Engadget podcast. I'm senior editor Devendra Hardawar. I'm joined with our reviews editor, Sherlyn Lowe. Hey, Sherlyn.
Hello.
And our producer, Ben Ellman. Hey, Ben.
What is up?
What's up? Hello, everybody. We are out of the confines of CES and back into our normal video chat framework. So I really like that because that whole CS virtual stage, I felt like I was trapped. I was Zod in Superman 2, right? So Sherlyn, what's up today, right? You're going to be all about the Galaxy S21.
Now that it is officially 11 a.m. Eastern, I can tell you that our reviews are up. I can talk fully about this little guy, the Galaxy S21. So we'll answer your questions and do a bit more of a deep dive on these later on during the show. But as a reminder, we're recording an episode of the Engadget podcast, which means, we won't be able to really interact with the YouTube audience all the time. Our regular viewers know this, but anyone that's new, we will still have segment breaks in between when we're talking and recording to answer your questions. So save them for later. Our producer, Ben, is in the chat as always. So we'll answer the best questions, only the best.
Only the best questions, please. Okay. And yeah, it's going to be, we're going to be recording a podcast. So there may be times where we go back and pick up and redo certain sequences. So just keep that all in mind. You're just seeing the sausage getting made, as we usually say. Okay, you guys good to go?
Yeah, I almost had a worse analogy for that.
Please don't.
Yeah, so
we were so good. Yeah.
We also can maybe do some hands-on time during the Q&A. So we're going to be doing a Q&A. We're going to be doing like a little politics thing at the beginning, then the Galaxy, then we're going to do a Q&A. And so stick around for the Q&A. You can ask specific questions, say, hey, I want to see this, and you will see that in real time. We like interacting with the chat during the designated interact with the chat parts.
Yes.
So let's get started.
Stay tuned for that. Okay.
And hello to our usuals, by the way. Mark, Bruna, D-Man are all here already, and hi to new names like Charlie Liu and Daniel Cockaining.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining us. Okay, you guys good to go?
Yes.
I'm good to go.
Okay. And just double checking, my recording looks good. Okay.
Making sure I'm still recording.
Yeah, make sure you're recording. The important stuff.
The post-CES burnout is real.
It's very real. Yeah. Okay.
All right. I think we're good.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Engadget podcast. I'm senior editor Devendra Hardawar.
I'm reviews editor Sherlyn Lowe.
This week, it's all about Samsung's Galaxy S21 and the S21 Ultra. Literally, the minute we started recording this is when the embargo went up, so we could actually start talking about it. Sherlyn's review is up in Engadget. Also, Chris Velasco did the S21 Ultra. So we'll be diving deeply into those new phones. And also, some of the top news this week, we had a little bit of a change of leadership in America, so that's worth talking about. As always, if you're enjoying the show, please be sure to subscribe to the Engadget podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or your podcaster of choice. Leave us a review on iTunes. You can always email us questions at podcast@engadget.com. We also typically record live around 10 a.m. Eastern on Thursdays. It's a little later this week because of the S21. But join us on our YouTube channel. You can interact with us in the chat. Something you won't be getting in the audio version of this podcast is like the live hands-on demos by Sherlyn of this phone. So that's a reason to tune in or go back and check out the actual YouTube recording. That's still up there, even if you're listening to this in audio. Okay. So before we get into our gadget nerdery, I think it is worth just spending a little time acknowledging the fact that we have left the Trump era of America. We've entered the Joe Biden and Kamala Harris era, and I feel a little better. It feels like an enormous weight has been lifted from my shoulders. It's sort of like that scene. I forget the king in Lord of the Rings, right? But the one who is kind of weighed down by the curse, and all of a sudden the color rushes back to his face and he comes back to life. I kind of feel like that right now.
I forgot his name, but the King of Gondor.
Is it the King of Gondor? Yeah. Well, we're nerds.
Ronan,
but only
Ronan anyway. Ronan, yeah, whatever. Right up Rohan or something.
Or Rohan. That was Rohan. I kind of feel like that. I feel re-energized. And I spent a lot of time yesterday just keeping the virtual inauguration on in the background. And it felt like a weird change of pace from when we were literally just a couple of weeks ago talking about a literal riot on the Capitol building. So it is crazy how fast things are changing. I'm excited. Sherlyn, was this your first time looking at a presidential inauguration in the U.S.?
I thought so, and then I remembered I actually did tune into bits and pieces of the Trump inauguration.
I'm sure you had to. Yeah.
Yeah, and I blocked it out of my memory. But then I remember seeing scenes where the Obamas came out to greet the Trumps, and in the car, and Donald Trump left the car first, and then Melania was
well,
like.
I also remember that his inauguration speech was this weird fire and brimstone type of thing. Like
I don't
it was
remember
just
that
like
at all.
very doomsday. Whereas right now, yeah, literally the opposite. One thing I'll remember from the Trump inauguration is that day I went to go see Triple X3, The Return of Xander Cage, right after. And that ended up being the appropriate movie because it was all about this, this group of basically people of color who are fighting the U.S. government, literally fighting the U.S. government. That movie rules. So be sure to check that out. What did you enjoy from the virtual inauguration? Because I did think it was a really, first of all, they knew they couldn't really have a huge party because of COVID. And also, I think now, especially this year, it is a good time to have a platform to show off, virtually like exactly what's happening, what's changing, and to kind of recenter America. And I think they at least did a great job of that with the virtual inauguration, right? It was a well-constructed event. There were a lot of musicians, a lot of people just really trying to lift up the vibe of the country. So I kind of appreciated that after what we suffered through for the last 4 years. Anything in particular that struck you, Sherlyn?
Yeah, I tweeted this already, but like I'm pretty sure 16-year-old or even 22-year-old me wouldn't believe that I just spent like the whole day with news TV on in the background, just watching speech after speech after speech.
Like an adult,
right?
yeah.
Like a real, I told my parents when I was a child I never watched the news. But anyway, what stood out was, I think for everyone, it seemed like Amanda Gorman and her, Youth Nobel laureate for poetry, I believe, gave a wonderful performance, I guess is the word for it.
Incredible poem and great
poem.
delivery of her poem too.
Amazing.
Like it is.
She stood out. And I think that's the other thing is that now that we're all at home, not being able to watch this inauguration, all working from home, we all had the excuse to turn on our TVs or have the feed playing on the background, and everyone had the chance to watch her make that delivery at the same time. I think that had a greater impact than say a regular inauguration without the pandemic and without this full staging.
There is usually some poet who gets up during the inauguration to kind of ring things in, but it felt like such a defining moment. And for me, that was the collective, like, oh crap, we were all watching this and people were tweeting about it. I think I tweeted like, this should be the new national anthem, basically. And beyond that, we're going to be following the Biden administration and kind of what they mean, what it means for tech and the environment and things like that too, like things specifically related to the beats we cover. But hey, it's worth noting yesterday, the first day, I think for his half day of work, he got there like a true Lisa Simpson, who was apparently, he and his administration just had been doing the work and were ready, like, okay, we got the okay. We have 17 executive orders to execute on day one. And that included rejoining the Paris Climate Accord, calling for federal building mask mandates, which shockingly has not been done. He extended student loan deferment, basically also reoriented coronavirus leadership so that the federal government was actually more in charge. There's just so much. It's a long list of just like bangers and wins, I'd say. Like revoking the Keystone XL pipeline, like amazing. Canceled rollbacks on emission standards, astounding. He stopped oil and natural gas leases in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. It's just insane. And this is before we even get into his like $1.9 trillion COVID American Rescue Plan, which that's not directly tech related, but I think anything that helps to spur on small businesses and jobs in America too will be something we will end up talking about too, because we're already seeing tech companies kind of step up to help more. Microsoft offered to give up some office space in Seattle for, I believe, for vaccinations and for whatever they need. So clearly, we're seeing, I think, the entire community step up. We've already talked about like his environmental plan too, which is another $1 trillion effort. And it's going to be a huge, huge deal. And we're going to follow that closely because this is an administration that's at least thinking more about what's new tech, not trying to just bring back oil jobs or trying to do things that the old industries want. It does seem like they're thinking ahead. We're going to need more jobs in this country too. Like after the pandemic basically cleared away, basically destroyed tons of jobs and the overall economy and businesses that people used to work for. We need like a green energy task force of some kind, you know, to have people who would be going out, building those, installing those solar cells, doing things like that to kind of reshape the country. I don't know if you have thoughts about what you're looking forward to, Sherlyn, with this administration.
And one thing he did roll back immediately, or seem to announce quite early on anyway, is some changes in his immigration policy or in the immigration policy. And that will have, I think, a great impact on the tech industry. I mean, we've covered the H-1B laws pretty intensively. And as like the resident visa person, I kind of like pay attention to that. I've covered it for us. We'll see what they do. But that to me is something that news-wise I'm paying attention to, because I think that ties quite closely with our scope of coverage.
For sure. And this is where I need to remind people, like, hey, we're a tech site, we're a gadget site, but it is important to realize like all the mechanics of how the government works, because all this stuff kind of affects where your gadgets are going to come from, or how these companies actually support bringing in workers from the outside to help build and design the next iPhone. You know, all of this stuff is interrelated, and I think very important. And hey, also Muslim ban, gone. That's kind of nice. It feels nice to see how much can change just quickly with having competent people in charge. We'll be following along with all this more, you know, in the future. But let's move on to the Galaxy S21 and S21 Ultra.
Oh, hey.
You're that gif of just like coming from behind the curtain and like, hey, I got the new phones.
So I was very excited to learn that my review unit is the lavender S21. It pretty. I like it. Our reviews of the S21 and the S21 Ultra are up. I covered the S21, and Chris Velasco reviewed the S21 Ultra. And these are very different phones, and that's why we chose to split them up. I think usually if the phones are very similar, we tend to bundle them together in one review. But yeah, they're very different. So let's go over what's different, right? Like, why should you pick the S21 versus the S21 Ultra? One thing to note, by the way, and this struck a chord with a lot of our viewers, is that across the entire line, there is no micro SD card slot. So,
is that the end of an era for Samsung, right? I'm surprised they kept that going for so long.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people have been asking if the S Pen support on the Ultra marks the end of the Note series, and I feel like there's still enough that the Note series can continue to exist, like micro SD card support on the Note 20 Ultra. Not sure about the smaller Note 20s just yet, but I mean, the Note 20 Ultra might still exist as like one of those very power user sort of phones.
Maybe they actually heard us and thought like, maybe we have too many phones, guys. Like,
I'm pretty sure they heard us, because every time we write an article that slams them, I get DMs. So
you get DM from Mr. Samsung, but not the Mr. Samsung that was just indicted for bribery charges in Korea. So
anyhow, so S21, S21 Ultra, the difference, you know, there's a lot of differences, right? The size, for one, the S21 is a 6.2 inch screen. The S21 Ultra, I believe, is 6.8 inch. And then, you know, the screen, speaking of that screen, the screen resolution is one of the things that stood out for the S21, because instead of kind of a 2K-ish display like last year, you got a full HD plus this year. Whereas on the S21 Ultra, you still have that I believe it's 3400 by 1440 display. I got it.
Did they actually go down in resolution?
It went down in resolution for the S21 and the S21 Plus. That was another complaint on a lot of people's parts.
Although you won't, let's be realistic. You will not, your eyes will not see that. Even if you had perfect vision, even if you had it like right up to your eyeballs, it's really hard to see the differences in those pixels.
Exactly. And the screen is small, and it's hard to notice the difference. But I will say that like the other thing that that means is in the past they had the 120 hertz refresh rate across the entire lineup, but only supported on full HD. So you'd have to go into the settings and select smooth the scrolling or whatever the settings name was, and then it would enable that, but only it would lock you down to full HD resolution. Now,
which is worth it, by the way. But
right, depending on your preference for battery drain or whatever. But when you look at the S21 Ultra, it's now supported on that higher I think QHD plus is the actual resolution, and then as well as 1080. And then this guy, the S21 and the S21 Plus, they support it, but they don't have that higher resolution to choose from anymore. So in a way, you kind of have it all the time if you want it. And you don't have to so-called sacrifice resolution on the bigger phone, but you already like just sacrifice resolution on.
Let me just say, we've talked about higher refresh rates, right? Like that'll make everything look smoother, scrolling especially. And I think that's going to be really noticeable on phones. That is an immediate battery hit, right? Because you were literally refreshing the screen that amount of times faster. So yeah, if you had a 120 hertz screen versus a 60 hertz screen, that's literally twice as much juice as required to keep that display going. So you know, it's something I can see why Samsung was like, okay, let's hold back on resolution. Let's kind of like rein a lot of this in, because I feel like so much of these new phones are just a numbers game for a lot of people. Like we've seen phones with 4K screens. Who cares? Who cares? You're not, doesn't matter. Not really, not not something you can actually see. But yeah, what else specifically? So what is different about the 20 and the 21 Trillion? Because I'm really interested in that.
The refresh rate battery drain a little bit. There is this thing you turn on called adaptive motion smoothing. I forget again these settings names. I just forget them the day after. But you can adaptive refresh rate. So, but depending on what you do, the software will just adjust the refresh rate down to 48 hertz on the S21 or S21 Plus. Say if you're just looking at a picture, right? But if you're scrolling, it will bump up the refresh rate to something like 120 hertz, where the smooth animation looks better. On the S21 Ultra, you can go down as low as 10 hertz. On the S21 and S21 Plus, the floor is 48 hertz. The other differences are like S21 Ultra supports and the S Pen, and the two smaller ones don't. And then the cameras, this is only a triple camera setup, and the main sensor is 12 megapixels sharp only. Main camera is 12 megapixels sharp, but on the Ultra, you got a quad sensor array. The main sensor is 108 megapixels. If you really want something that's sharp, but that does enable like some binning on the night mode, and I'll talk about that later. But and then it has a dual telephoto lens setup on the Ultra, whereas this only has one telephoto option, and it doesn't even do actual optical zoom. It does like hybrid optic zoom.
What is the point? Let me just say the S21 Ultra, that camera array in the back, because we're basically seeing 5 lens pods and like the little pod for the flash. The ugliest thing I've ever seen on a phone. It is horrific. It looks awful. It just seems like, hey, we had to cram all these lenses in. Let's not like do this in an elegant way. At least the S21 with those 3 lenses looks a little cleaner, but I hate the way the S21 Ultra looks. Have you seen it in person yet, Sherlyn?
I think I have, but I can't remember. when I got this phone from V, that's probably when I saw it. But I will say that I don't know how else they can do it. I really don't know how they can line up 4 or 5 sensors like that. I will say, and the other thing I'll say a lot of things, is that I really do. I didn't know if I would like the contour cut. This is what they're calling the way the kind of edge wraps around the corner a little bit to house the camera module instead of having it float in like the middle of nowhere, that hump. I like it because it's actually more even than before. Not completely flush, right, but still even. And
is that bad when it comes to protecting the lenses though? Because I always find like the humps are good to like keep the lenses in a separate thing if you drop your phone or something.
I agree with you, but I do think this metal housing is fairly sturdy. I think it can get scratched up, but it seems sturdy, so I haven't dropped this phone so far, which hallelujah. But there's also a slight, like, you can see sort of like a bit of glass, a slight like difference in it's like dips a little, right? The surface of the camera part dips a little, so there's that sort of gap protection that some companies do. I don't know the technical names of a lot of these things, but yeah, I don't know yet, right? I do think this feels like it's safer than the hump from before.
For sure.
But like, I'm just so taken with the color. I like the way it looks.
The colors, like the design is a little nice, even though it's a little boxier. Any other like major differences between the S20 from last year? I don't think it's like not a necessary upgrade from what I can tell at this point.
Yeah, but it feels like a refinement in a lot of ways. I think that some of the things that stood out to me were surprisingly the software. For example, one thing that our live chat viewers asked us to try out when we were unboxing the S21 last week, S21 Ultra last week, was the object eraser tool. So I'm pretty fussy about what appears in my background. I don't want people to see that I live a hobo, well, sort of messy life.
We can only see a certain extent of your house in our video right now.
I'm typically a pretty neat person, and there's not a lot of clutter, but when there is, I like to get rid of it. I just want to have this, I guess, appearance that I'm a neat person. And yeah, this tool seemed fun to me, and it's not like these tools haven't existed in some form in other platforms, right? Adobe Photoshop's done this for a while. There's the Meitu selfie editing app has this feature and has had it for a while, but for Samsung to bake it into the native photo editor app is, I think, cool, and it works similarly to those apps, right? In terms of the effectiveness, I enjoy, like, just like on my blank white wall, I could get rid of artwork and photo frames pretty easily. But like in my doorway, if there's a box and there's all kinds of like other stuff, then it's hard. Like it will leave streaks behind in that auto-generated background. So still kind of like nifty to have if you have like a decent background to work with. And then let's see. The other thing was, okay, so space zoom, right, is one of the big differences between the Ultra and the S21 and S21 Plus. And on the Ultra, you get up to 100 times space zoom, and it's been improved this year thanks to a combination of that 3 times optical and 10 times optical like telephoto lenses. On the S21 and S21 Plus, you're still relying on this hybrid 3x optic zoom situation, and it's not great. It's still pretty muddy. I mean, Samsung says it's like done some work on the algorithm to improve the processing and sharpening. And I mean, again, both V and I asked this in our reviews, which is there's some ethical concerns, and would you ever really need to get beyond 10 times zoom? Is it necessary? But I mean, when I did the test, this is like, I like to talk about like behind the scenes review stuff. Well, I was just trying to test something and see like what use could I get out of this feature. I managed to find out that across the I think 3 streets across from my building, there's been a construction in the works, and there's this big like what looks like a power box on the roof. So I zoomed in, and I managed to find out that so-called power box is actually the brand of toilets they were installing in that building. So
okay, you found the toilet boxes.
I guess it's useful to spy on things from far away. I'm sure there are good uses, like when you're.
So many of us are stuck at home. We need that rear window experience of just zooming into whatever our neighbors are up to.
Yeah. Well. Wow. Okay. I know. Too. But if you're at a big arena at some point in future, that would be a nice feature to have. Or if you're, you have trouble seeing things far away. Maybe there's a sign really far away, but you're, I don't know, mobbed in a crowd. Gosh, that's a nightmare. But take a pic. You hold up your phone and zoom super into a sign that's really far away. Could be useful eventually. Right now, though, it seems pretty to quote V, like a meaningless flex on Samsung's part.
I mean, it's not as meaningless as like the super zoom that we've seen from some other companies, right? Like other companies have tried more, haven't they? I've seen from some of the Chinese phone makers. Yeah.
Yes. So like optical zoom lenses on phones, not very new. I think Xiaomi or Oppo did one where they folded a periscope lens sort of thing into and similarly to how Samsung started doing it. I don't think any of them have claimed up to 100 times zoom the way Samsung has.
And this is 100 optical and digital, like combined.
Right. 100 times space zoom is a combination of the optical and digital. So that's definitely not like 100 times but yeah, there's other things, right? That like we talked to Hiroshi Lockheimer last week about Android and Samsung and some of their collaborations there. And one of the things that's nice to see on One UI 3 is that like when you swipe to the right from the homepage now, you'll pull up the Google Discover feed, which is much better than what it was before, which was Samsung Daily, which is feed everywhere. Dang, like RIP. But
it turns out like whenever Samsung moves away from its own software, its phones get better. Yes. Shocker.
I'm so sorry, but getting rid of Bixby and that silly little Bixby button on the phones, man. But speaking of Samsung Daily, right? Instead of getting rid of it altogether, Samsung kind of rebranded it, removed it from that, left of the home screen location, and called it Samsung Free, which is like kind of a strange name to give your app. Okay, they renamed it Samsung Free, and Samsung Daily, by the way, is no longer supported on Galaxy S20s with One UI 3. But Samsung Free, I found it super fun, surprisingly. Like, I hated Samsung Daily, but Samsung Free, give me more, because
let's not encourage them. Come on.
I know, but basically it puts a bunch of like TV channels or publications or games that you can access and play for free, right? As the name suggests. So I didn't think I would like it until I just was checking it out as part of the review. And I found a channel that just played Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares the whole time. 24/7 Kitchen Nightmares.
Sure.
For free. And I was like, oh, bitch, I would do this.
That's okay.
Like, I will watch this. So I just watched Kitchen Nightmares while I was texting my friends and whatever.
You have Kitchen Nightmares on tons of services right now, probably, surely. But it was just there. Yeah.
It was just there, and like I didn't have to go find it or whatever. And you know me, I like to put something on TV and still look at something else on my phone.
I was really wondering, like, what basic game did you end up falling into because of Samsung Free? Was it did anything call to you?
No, thankfully I didn't spend too much time looking at the games. I will say I've played a lot of Two Dots, like I mentioned a few weeks ago. So still maining
that's a thing
right now.
Let's talk about the competition for these phones, because I'm curious about where the Android landscape is right now. These are the first major new phones of the year. We're expecting a ton more, but probably not for a while. Are these running the latest greatest Snapdragon processors? Is there anything major we're looking forward to that they don't have?
So I'll start with what they do have, right? It's Snapdragon 888, which is the high-end phone, not that confusing Snapdragon 870 that Qualcomm just announced, which we will get to in a little bit. 8 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs, or 256 gigs of storage, depending on your configuration. And then at $800, honestly,
that's not bad.
That's seriously good. Out there in the market at this price range, you have the Pixel 5, which is $100 cheaper, and uses like an old ass.
That thing is like basically 3 years behind at this point.
Yeah,
really.
So the Pixel 5 is one of the competitors. The other competitor is the OnePlus 8T, which uses an 865, I believe, and I think maybe slightly more RAM, but I have to double check. But here's the thing. I feel like the OnePlus 8T and the Galaxy S21 are very different phones. The OnePlus 8T is a good phone at that price range for the power user. You know, you have things like 120 hertz refresh rate. You have very clean software. You have sort of a quad sensor array, but I'm not a big fan of OnePlus's cameras in general.
I never trust their cameras. Yeah.
They're not great. And also, instead of a telephoto, you have a 5 megapixel macro lens. So it's like, if you really like close-ups,
I feel like a macro lens for a lot of people would be more useful than an extra telephoto. Like, especially you see something outside and you're like, look at this cool bug. And then you start to realize you can only focus to a certain point with your phone cameras, you know? Yeah.
I haven't had that problem. So maybe this is a like,
you don't like nature, so I get it, but yeah.
Wow, I don't like nature, but I don't get up close with bugs. Dang. But I will say this, the Samsung, the S21 Ultra does have a sort of faux macro mode where like it switches to the ultra wide angle lens when it senses that you're very, very close to your subject. So there is that option where you still get the focus, right? I do see your point about like a 5 megapixel macro being more useful than say a 10 times optical zoom for someone. But anyway, that's the OnePlus 8T. And I feel like OnePlus appeals to its very hardcore users and people who are willing to experiment a little bit. But for the most part, people want to go with a brand they already know. And the Galaxy S series is really well established.
Because you could buy it anywhere it is still the iPhone equivalent for Android, you know? So Kind of makes sense.
The iPhone equivalent to this, the final competitor for this that I considered for my review is the iPhone 12. The not the mini, the one up from the mini.
The one up, yeah.
Camera setup is similar. They're all like 12 megapixel, wide, ultra wide, and
it's a beautiful phone. Like I have an 11 Pro. I bought my wife the iPhone 12 recently, like yanking her out of Androidverse because I'm just tired of juggling two ecosystems in the same house. It's not worth it. But just looking at the screen on the iPhone 12, like the way it's sort of painted on to beautiful OLED screen. They're still stuck with 60 hertz refresh rate, but every time I look at her phone, it's like, it looks a little brighter and a little punchier than mine because it's actually using, I think, a newer type of Apple's OLED displays. So there are benefits there.
Yeah. Have you looked at the Samsung phone though? You know what I mean? Like,
I haven't looked at the S21. Yeah,
they're the market leaders for a reason in terms of screens, right? Their screens are amazing. I will say yes. When I saw the iPhone 12 mini at my hands-on, I did find it nice too. I think we're at a point where most screens are nice.
So, well, at least if they're, because Samsung is AMOLED, the iPhone, the new Retina XR is also OLED. So as long as you've got the OLED, then you have this nice painted effect right on the screen that looks beautiful. I think at this point I can tell when a phone is going LCD and maybe has a slightly lesser screen. That's immediately noticeable to me. Yeah.
To your point too about the screens, right? Like I made that rookie mistake of getting tricked by the saturation on Samsung's screen where I took a picture on the S21 and I was like, oh my gosh, this looks beautiful. Shared it to Instagram and then looked at it on my other phone, like a Pixel, and I was like, damn it, this was just normal.
Lower that saturation, Samsung. Come on, it's a lie.
So, yeah, I was pretty bummed by that, and that was so far on record my lowest liked Instagram post to date. So I blame.
Wow, you're ugly duckling. Final question for you between all this. So S21 versus the S21 Ultra. I assume the Ultra is more expensive and everything. Who should get the S21? Who should get the S21 Ultra?
For me, a lot of it boils down to the size of this thing. I found the S20 Ultra, which is last year's Ultra, heavy. It was cumbersome. And the size of the S20 regular, which is last year's, was much better for me. And this is very much the same, except it looks just so much prettier. I'm okay with the full HD resolution. That's perfectly fine by me. It runs, gosh, like an Olympic champion, really. And there's just... I can't think of anything that I want that I don't have other than micro SD card slot, but I rely on cloud storage. I think for most mainstream people, S21 will be just fine, especially at the price. And then go up to the S21 Ultra if you're really looking for a few more high-end features, if you really think you want good telephoto and zoom pictures. And, I do think it does have better cameras. The S21 Ultra definitely has better clarity in its pictures as well from some of the samples I have seen. So yeah, I mean, those are the reasons. Everything else is largely, you also get nicer color options on the smaller phones too. So if you
we're watching also some video of this too, and looking at the side view of these things in this camera hump, I'm like, it's starting to look like one of those thick dad wallets, just getting a little too thick, I think. But
that's a bigger phone for sure. And it's bigger with bigger cameras in there. Whereas it's a little bit more flush on the S21. So again, I feel like the S21 is good enough for most people. This is the phone that I'll probably recommend my mom get when she wants to upgrade. It's nice. I have very few bad things to say about it, really.
For sure. Okay. Well, thank you, Shirlyn, for all this. If you guys have any questions about the S21 or S21 Ultra, shoot us an email at podcast@engadget.com, and we'll be sure to take it. You do that again. Shoot us an email at podcast@engadget.com, and we will take a look at all your questions. All right. Move to Q&A.
Yeah, so let's do Q&A. So chat, if you are interested in hearing or seeing anything specific about this phone, this is your time to ask.
Do it.
I have a couple of questions banked. I just need to make a quick note here.
Everyone that talking about mice right now, thanks for making my morning a nightmare. I blame Ben for that. I saw
mice everywhere.
Yes, did you see? So we were talking about what you're scared of, and people were like, "Oh, found your kryptonite. It's bugs." I was like, "No, mice." Someone else was like,
"Why would you
just actually cutting her bangs too short
with a mouse?" I don't know, or secret mice in her house. All right, I'm gonna run to the bathroom. I will let you start off this Q&A. I'll be right back.
Yeah, there's plenty of questions. I'm sure Ben, you can start. I mean, you've been banking them.
Yeah. So one person, Daniel Cockane, asks, is it still 15-watt wireless charging?
Wireless charging.
Wireless charging.
Let me take a friggin' look for you. But they didn't give a lot of info. It's just fast wireless charging 2.0. That's what it is. I can take a look at what those speeds are. It should be the same. It shouldn't have changed since then. Let me see. Is 10 watt plus is what the official language is on Samsung's page. But if it was 15 watt before, I would say it's probably the same now because they would say.
And so another user, SotNEC, I'm not sure, suggests test a portrait and a low light shot between this S21 and the iPhone, which is, I think, what everyone asks when a new phone comes out. So has V done that? Have you done that?
I think V has. He's got access to all the iPhones, the latest ones. The iPhones that I have aren't fair to compare against, just because they're not they're not this year's or last year's model, and that's not fair. And I will say that where I'm going to test them soon though, because I'm going to make him hand me one of the this year's iPhones or iPhone 12s.
So we're probably going to get that sometime in the future.
Yeah. I mean, again, like I said, stay tuned to the our social media. Me and V are going to continue to share.
So user Phantom Raven just jumped into the chat and said that it's 15 watt wireless charging, 24 watt wall charging.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What is PD?
Power delivery. It's a standard.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah. And I think it's PD 3.0 on the wired charge side, if I'm not wrong. I think Bruna had a question I was looking at. I'm just going back through the chat myself too. I'm sorry that, yes, Bruna, love it. Just half of the clown crowd today, indeed. Just one clown. Hi, it's clown one.
And so when we were talking about cameras and everything, Mark Dale said, has any company made a multi-lens dial on the back of phones? Like you could rotate the dial and change the lens, but you're still using the same sensor. That seems like something
impossible.
That would be, well, I don't know if it's impossible, but it seems like sort of a high-end, like trial balloon kind of thing.
So Xiaomi did make a concept multi-lens thing late last year. I remember writing it up. I don't think it is a dial situation where you can switch out the lens, but there was a very interesting concept. Let me just find it for you guys.
And we have seen those aftermarket lenses too, right? Where you could just snap on different things onto the back of your phone.
Like moment, yeah.
So Daniel actually has like a follow-up question or kind of like a follow-up comment. Do you think you'd be able to charge your Samsung Galaxy on a MagSafe charger?
Sure.
Since they use the same.
If they're both, they're both cheap,
fine.
And I think they are. Yeah, you should be.
Although it probably wouldn't lock in.
No,
like
it wouldn't.
It does.
No, there's no.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. The magnet part wouldn't work, but the charging part would work. It should be interoperable. I almost feel like Bruna said something that I was trying to pull up. So Mark is asking about the tracker. I haven't tested it. I believe they might have only given us one, and Chris Velasco has ours, if I'm not wrong, but I'll double check. I didn't see one in my box.
It would be ironic if we lost the tracker. That would be the ultimate.
Oh yeah, V has it, and he should find it.
Is there anything that you want to show off in front of the camera here, like specific things about the phone?
So one of the new things, so-called new things, by the way, that Samsung did, and here's the thing, right? And I wanted to say this during the podcast. We'll see if we can get it in. But one of my biggest challenges as a reviewer of these established phone lines is to figure out what's new and what's not. And that's the thing with Samsung Free. I was like, this looks like a new app. And they were like, it used to be called Samsung Daily, which used to be on the left side of the home screen. So it's not new. but it's now called Samsung Free. So
yeah, we built this thing. We can't just throw it away, you know?
So yeah. So the other thing I was trying to figure out if it was new, and a lot of things, right? One of the things is portrait mode. In my mind, it was just like they always called it portrait mode, but no, before this they called it live focus. It's still pretty crap. I mean, I don't say it in as plain words in my review, but it's not great. They say they have improved their AI, but you know, it's still not good at, again, I know the chat's been talking about how my hair exploded. There's wisps of hair around my head, and the AI is still not very good at detecting those.
Every portrait mode has issues with that. Even the Apple one, like I've had issues with that when I try to take pictures of Sophia, my daughter, you know, like her hair will go crazy and it just doesn't know what to do. I do feel like good portrait is one thing people want right now, right? It seems standard in Google's phones and the iPhone. So Samsung's just isn't quite there.
I love portrait modes, right? And Google has one of the best, in my opinion. I think iPhones are improving on that front too. Here's another basic UI thing that Samsung needs to improve, right? A lot of its fun modes like that are buried in More, whereas like on the Google camera app, which is also buries a lot of things in More, it's done better with the latest Android update to move some of those things. Like when you go to video mode, you get options for not panorama, time lapse and slow motion and that sort of thing now. On the Samsung and Google also has a dedicated portrait mode like thing that you can quickly switch to. For Samsung is buried under More, and like there's a lot of More. Like there's a lot of things more that you can do. I don't know if you can see it right now. Take a look at my face. But night mode is here, portrait mode is here. It's just always 2 swipes away to get to some of these things. But speaking of portrait mode, I play it with it. These new like blur effects and lighting effects are like fine. They're funny. I look wild. I'll post some of them to Instagram stories so you can take a look. And I'll let y'all vote on them, but they're pretty fun. They're just not anything actually good or useful, you know?
Yeah. I think Apple, at least when it comes to that artificial lighting in their portrait modes, does a better job there. Whereas Google's computing capabilities is the thing that really makes their portrait mode stand out, even with a single lens camera. Can you use the Google camera on the Samsung phones for portrait?
You can download the app.
Yeah, so there you go.
Yeah. So that's what a lot of people do. That's a power user move, Def. Good for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is where we are, right? We're power users and super nerds over here.
There's a good question. There's a couple of good questions that I just didn't get to talk about during the podcast recording. Video. Okay, so video recording through all lenses now is can be up to 4K at 60 frames per second, which is great.
Say bye-bye to your storage, but that is pretty great. Yeah.
Director's view is fun. I like using it to record a video of like what's in front of me as well as what my face looks like, I guess. Actually, might as well do it now and then I'll post it later on.
I mean, can you use those for TikTok videos where you have like both sides?
Exactly. That's what I said in my review. It's for which is uploading to those. But the problem is that the apps are supported natively. Yes, you just have to record outside and on the,
People feel so betrayed by those, even though it's really just flipping the camera. I'm not sure. I think it's really just like could be a generational thing. Like where these kids like grew up with smartphone cameras and they're like, wow, okay, like I'm only ever seeing myself through the selfie camera. But again, on the other hand, like the selfie camera shows you the same view that you see in a mirror. And so like using the front camera with the flip would show you, I guess, how other people see you, and like they're just kind of confused by that. If your face is a tiny bit not symmetrical like a lot of people's are, yes, that could be like really.
Well, I think, aren't you talking about like doing front camera to just see what's outside of you, Sherlyn, so that you're getting like outside view plus your selfie camera?
Right, exactly. You're getting the back camera and the front camera at the same time. So there's a little thumbnail at the top. I'm recording another one now, but in the TikTok friendly portrait mode, portrait orientation. I see myself. I look great. Whew. And then
I saw TikTok just added a Q&A feature for some creators. Like that would be really cool for us to hit some questions real quick.
Right, isn't that great?
We'll play with that.
So one person has a quick question about the haptics. Is there anything interesting about the haptics on this phone?
I mean, I think people just usually like to ask about haptics, just so you know.
It goes burr. Phone go burr.
Yeah, I haven't felt anything majorly different. And if it was, I think I would have said something.
Okay.
I want to address that D-Man brought up a point that Dieter Bond over the Verge review said there's ads in the Samsung software, and look.
Yeah.
And in one of our tech review group chats, this question came up like, I don't know, last night or the night before, and they were like, do you guys have a screenshot of the ads? And quite a few of us didn't, because what we did during the setup process is say no to the ads. And you just turn it off.
I mean, it is annoying that that's on by default, and I think I see that more and more with some companies like Roku's devices. My Roku TV has ads sometimes, and Roku by default does this thing where like, hey, are you watching The Mandalorian? Let me put a pop-up on your screen to be like, here's more stuff that's like The Mandalorian. I'm like,
that's
stop.
No, I hate that. I hate that all apps do that, right? Like Disney Plus is constantly bombarding me with notifications. Now
it's worth calling out, but yeah.
It is worth calling out. I do think that like the fact that it's a notification from Samsung's system that you have to go and mute is a problem. I when we were discussing this in our group chat, I said, this Samsung phone thinks it's a Kindle, ha ha. That's what I said. But
and everyone's like, Sherlyn, that joke is 10 years old. Come on.
I know, ha ha. That's why I said ha ha. But it's not any cheaper for having those ads. But I guess you can turn them off. Look, it's
annoying too, because when those ads pop up in devices, companies are making money from these things that you've already paid for. So I do feel like that is something eventually, if we had smarter people in political power, they could be like, hey, no, like you can't just run ads off of devices that people are paying for. At least give a discount, or be very clear, or just don't do it at all, because it sucks. Yeah.
So we've got another 3 questions just to get through, I think, really quickly. So Jay Stan asks, just how are the speakers in general?
I mean, they're fine. Into like a lot of our videos on them, and they were clear. They don't, they're not bottom mounted. They're not bottom mounted like on the Pixel 4a, so they're pretty good. Let me just play something really quickly. But again, bear in mind you're streaming on YouTube through my audio technique.
Yeah, it's like several different layers of compression and different things.
But let me play something I like, because I can never stop trying to. Well, I can only play.
Okay, so there's no like BTS music just like preloaded onto Samsung phones.
You gotta pay for that.
Ben.
That's Sherlyn's. Is that racist, Ben? Is that just because it's a Korean phone company? Let's.
Okay, so moving on quickly, we've got Michelle Mata asking, coming in late to this event, thanks for doing this. Has anyone tried to use the telephoto lens for capturing things in motion? I want to photograph my husband while he's out surfing.
That's a really good use case.
That'd be fun.
I'm glad that you said while he's surfing at the end of it, because my mind went somewhere else. But no, it's hard. It's hard as crap. So first of all, there's a new feature called Zoom Lock, which is great, and I don't think it's brand new, because I've seen an iteration of this before. Yeah. Where like you hold it up and you're like pretty sure this is the general area you want to capture something in, and you have to be at beyond 20 times zoom, by the way. You tap the viewfinder thingy, there's a button on the viewfinder, you lock it, and it's stable. It doesn't really move out of that scene. But if your subject is in motion, a second later they're out of that frame, then you got to reframe again, right? So and like anything again beyond 10 times zoom is pretty muddy. Yes, you can get great close-up shots, I think, but no, you can get some close-up shots. They're not going to be great beyond 10 times zoom. I think
because what they're asking for is like really strong telephoto, but also fast, like really fast picture taking, and that's something where even these phones are getting there. Like doing it quickly is tough. Doing it if you're not on a tripod and you're actually holding it and you're like out in the beach, like that's going to be extra tough. So you need a real camera and DSLR.
Okay, so we've got one more.
What's up?
One more quick. Sorry.
Wait, go ahead.
For Michelle, the S21 Ultra will do a better job. It'll be cleaner in its zoom, by the way.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, one more quick question. Is there any changes between One UI 3.1 that Samsung says shipped with the S21s compared to the 3.0 on the Note 20 and S20 just updated too? That's for another one from Daniel.
Yeah, I saw that question too. So personally haven't seen any difference. The only thing I will say that might be different is that the feet might not be on the left yet. I don't know. I mean, I haven't updated the Note 20 Ultra to One UI 3 yet, but I will say this, I'm pretty sure you'll get all those updates in due time, like soon enough. And if you can't find Object Eraser, by the way, it's in the photo editor app, in the gallery app, and you have to enable labs by tapping the 3-dot button on the top right.
Oh, so easy. So
it's an experimental feature.
Okay, let's move on to some other news.
We'll take more questions if we have time near the end. Yeah.
We'll do a wrap.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to some other news stories. And one thing that actually dropped this morning as we're recording the podcast is some details on Apple's rumored VR headset plans and AR headset plans from Bloomberg. It is, first of all, we know Apple was kind of working on something just because this category, right, is interesting enough and new enough, and Magic Leap had gotten billions in funding to try to develop these perfect AR glasses, and they completely failed. So the door is wide open for a company like Apple to kind of jump in. Microsoft is kind of getting there with HoloLens too. But what Bloomberg is saying is kind of interesting, right? Is they're saying Apple is working on a standalone VR headset that's going to be very, very expensive, very powerful, even more powerful than the M1 chips that are currently in Macs. Potentially may have cloth. Right now, they're working on a couple of designs. It may have bands, which none of Apple's mobile devices have. I think the key, though, is that this thing, it's not going to be a mainstream device. It sounds like Apple is planning something that is super, super premium that developers can use to start building things within its own AR VR platform, and eventually they're going to come up with a pair of actual AR glasses, so maybe more like Magic Leap, when the tech is there for it. Bloomberg says could be as soon as 2022 when we see these VR glasses or these VR goggles, which seems kind of soon, but basically Apple is starting from scratch here, right? Because what we've seen with the VR market is that everybody, Oculus and HTC Vive launched at the same time, I believe 2016. Steam VR is a platform, started building up there. Oculus has its own platform. Windows has its mixed reality platform. These are all PC-focused things, right? And then Sony's out there with PlayStation VR, which, hey, works really well and ended up bringing basic VR to a lot of people with those consoles. But so far, VR has been very PC-focused. Apple has been shut out entirely. It's sort of like it is a weird thing where they're missing out on this entire new medium. So it makes sense that they're working on their own things, that they're maybe not striving to solve all the problems of VR with this first device, because, hey, that's what Facebook's trying to do with the Oculus Quest and the Quest 2. And I think they're doing a really good job of it, but there are still problems and there's still data issues with Facebook and everything. And also, even though Facebook is making these things more inexpensive, right? The Quest 2 starts at, is it $199 now or $299? It is cheaper than the Quest 1 was. And it's still pretty powerful too, and you could do a lot with it, but we're still waiting for a lot of good content. I don't know if it's a great buy for everybody, but we are getting there. So that part of it makes sense. One thing that is weird, they say Apple had trouble fitting in space. They had trouble making them light enough for people to actually wear these headsets. So they actually remove the extra space that's in a lot of headsets to make room for glasses, like my thick glasses. Oh. And I already have trouble fitting glasses into VR headsets. I always feel like I'm about to crunch my glasses here. The story says that Apple is just okay, well, let's just remove glasses support and we'll just add support for, replaceable prescription lenses, which is a thing you can do on certain VR headsets already. You could do that with the Quest and Quest 2. I never really got into that because it hasn't worked out that well for me. I did get a pair of prescription glasses from Facebook to test, or prescription goggles. It's fine, but I think it's easier for me to keep my glasses on and try out multiple headsets at once. So that issue could be an issue for Apple, because it takes that VR device into almost like a medical category where you'll need specific, approval to deliver prescription lenses or something. So that could be an issue. So Apple's doing something with VR. We're kind of getting more details. I think what is funny is I woke up, I saw that story, and it is me at Oculus Connect 6 at the top of that Bloomberg story, and that feels really weird. It reminds me of when you're in VR, when you're wearing a headset, you have no idea what's happening outside, right? And I didn't see a photographer. I never had to be like, hey, cool, it's okay if you take a photo of me. When I take photos of people at events, I ask them, especially if they're in VR, because you may be doing something that looks a little weird or silly and you don't want to be published with that. But yeah, I believe I was testing the hand tracking on the Oculus Quest. So I have this like weird fist pose or something. Anyway, when you go to any event, you basically sign a waiver that's like, hey, you're going to be photographed, you're going to be videotaped. It's just funny to see myself pop up here with this whole thing. Have you yeah.
I just want to say it's a good picture of you. It's not even a dig because your face is half covered.
It's all right. I think that's why it's a good picture of me, is that I'm wearing a VR headset and I'm striking like a semi.
You look like you're flexing. It's pretty good. Yeah.
Because I think at that point I was trying to grab something with the hand gesture. So yeah, that was funny to see. We will certainly have more news on Apple's VR plans. And, I've talked to some people and a lot of folks are just like, this is a very dumb strategy from Apple. But I'll say it kind of makes a lot of sense for them. Nobody wants to like build their entire strategy around VR, because AR and AR glasses is kind of where we're headed, or at least mixed reality glasses that can kind of do both. So Apple's swinging for the device that's coming 5 years from now, because that's going to be a huge new category. Whereas we've seen so far, I think Oculus has done a good job of basically perfecting what a good standalone VR headset could be like. And even that is still limited for a lot of people. It's very closed off. I can't see anything happening outside. If I go into VR, I can't see my wife. I can't see my child, like you are in your own zone. So I do think like AR is going to be a thing that's going to be a little more broadly accessible whenever we get there.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it's not like we haven't heard that Apple has been working on, some sort of headset for a long time. These rumors have been swirling for so long since they made hires in those departments. We're just, I think, getting closer to finding out more. I think 2022, if that's really the case, of them being ready to start selling these or launching these, we might even hear something by the end of this year from Apple.
We'll probably like, I wouldn't be surprised if they tease it at the big product events later this year.
One more thing, and then
one more thing. You've actually been in VR this whole time. Don't forget Magic Leap, guys. Like, we've been writing about Magic Leap for years. Like, they got a ton of funding and they were so hyped up. Just fizzled and burned. They couldn't make it work. And I think Apple is afraid of that. Apple's afraid of the potential problems we're already seeing in the VR industry too. That's one reason why Microsoft, they have HoloLens, they have some Windows mixed reality headsets kind of out there, but they haven't brought it to Xbox, which I think would be a big thing for them. I feel like a lot of people are waiting for wireless VR to become a thing. So maybe that'll be the next version of the PlayStation VR, or the next version of whatever they bring to Xbox. So this is a really nascent industry, and that's why I think we're seeing a lot of different people experiment with different strategies. I wouldn't call this crazy for Apple yet. This may actually be the thing that we need to get them to AR, sooner than other folks.
We'll see. You want
to move on to your thing, Sherlyn?
Yes. So I'll just bring it up. Some other news happened this week, of course, and we can't talk about all of them, but I did want to shout out the Snapdragon 870 5G chipset. This is Qualcomm's new so-called high-end, premium mobile chipset, right? This follows up the Snapdragon 865 Plus, or the 865, which is kind of confusing, right? Because didn't the company just announce the Snapdragon 888 in December? But okay, so the Snapdragon 888, right? It has different architecture altogether. It's got that one, prime core, the superpower like X1, I think, prime, and then it's got the regular like big cores and then the like little cores. The 870 5G is more similar to the 865 and 865 Plus in that respect. It does have a bit of a slightly faster graphics processor. The Adreno graphics processor is a little bit faster, and then that's pretty much it. This is it's like for those brands that want to get a Snapdragon 888 or want sort of high-end power but don't want to get the 888 for some reason.
Sure.
Is
there a price difference? Is there a power draw difference? What do you think? Like, that could be a thing.
Right. So here's the big difference. It is a 7 nanometer chipset versus the 888, which is 5 nanometers.
Ooh.
That's the huge difference, right? And that's why I kind of want to be like, why do you want to make a new 7nm chipset when you already have the 5nm? But
it'll be cheaper.
That will be cheaper. It will mean power draw might be different. You know what I mean? It probably is. Yeah. But then this does give phone companies the option of, here's still a good high-end iterative upgrade from last year that you can buy that won't be as expensive as the 5.
I think we're seeing like there's a need for more variety in chipsets, right? Like that's why the Pixel 5 ended up being stuck with like a 2-year-old chipset, because there wasn't like that not quite high-end but inexpensive and bigly affordable and efficient chip for them to choose at that point.
It's hard to say why that decision was made, just because I feel like Qualcomm's product portfolio is already pretty segmented. You've got the 800 series, then you've got the 600 mid-range series, but in between you have the 700 series, then you got the 400 series. Fam, I could talk to you about Snapdragon numbers all day. Don't even.
Stay tuned for more Snapdragon talk. Snap Talk with Sherlyn Lowe. Yeah,
that's the
Snap Talk.
But yeah, so it was just interesting to see, because we discussed, we talked about this slightly when we were talking about the S21 earlier. Will there be maybe a new, by the way, the Galaxy S20 FE, will there be a S21 FE later this year that uses the 870 instead of an 888 and therefore be a lot cheaper? Sure, but also want to shout out that for those of you that just bought an S20 FE, I'm so sorry, little violin for you, because you just got showed up by the S21 because that's the better phone to get for the money, right? Like a few months later, Samsung just showed you a better phone for $100.
It's never a good time to buy a Samsung phone, because they're always ready to launch something that's different and it's gonna be a little cheaper. It's so annoying. I don't know.
We got that question on Twitter too, which is when is a good time to buy a Samsung phone? And I was just like, don't buy it when it just launched. Just don't never. That's the first thing.
Depends on how much you need a new phone, right?
Right. If you can wait, you'll almost certainly always find it cheaper a month later. Like,
I do feel like maybe they need to do a better job of telling us what's coming, and that may affect sales or something, but at least that would be a little more transparent with audiences. So you could be like, okay, you want the S21 and Ultra right now? You want a Note? Wait a couple months for the Note. You want something cheaper? We will have an FE later this year. Like, at least give us the roadmap. Yeah.
Well, we more or less know the cadence of these things, right? We know that in the fall, we can always expect a new Note, some new iPhones, some new Pixels. We know that in February, we always see a new February or January, in this case, we see a new S20 something. And then new Sony phones, new one.
But the FE was a surprise last year, right? And we don't know if a Note's coming. Yeah.
We don't know. Yeah, they could stand to be more transparent for sure. But I think there's still this whole, like, we want to surprise everyone. We hate the leakers kind of deal going on. So we'll see.
It's okay. You're Samsung. People will buy your phones. Trust me. Let's move on to what we've been working on. And I just want to shout out a couple of things here. ZenBook Duo, the Asus ZenBook Duo, which won our best PC category at CES, by the way. A very cool laptop. It is their latest dual screen machine. I am testing that right now for a review for next week. I'm really digging it. There's a reason I recommended it as our best at CES, because I do think Asus has done a good job of optimizing and bringing their dual screen technology forward and the software and everything around that. So that's pretty good. I also, actually, as we're recording this, I have my webcam perched on the edge of Dell's 40-inch ultra-wide monitor, and that's something I'll be writing about as well. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty big monitor, but I'm also coming at it from a 34-inch ultra-wide, which that is my sweet spot for desktop computing. I'm not feeling a huge difference there, and it's kind of big and unwieldy, and not so great from games at this point from what I've seen, but we'll have more on that soon. We're both also working on stuff around Sundance, right? So we will, I'm working on a preview thing. They're doing something really cool this year where they're doing this like VR interface. So I actually just tested it out. You can go to a web page, and if you do that on an Oculus Quest or a VR headset, it will launch a WebXR experience where you can go in and talk with people, but also through web browsers, people can also log in and do like walk around like Second Life or something, and walk up to people and do video chats with the VR people. So they are experimenting with all this cool new stuff. We'll be writing about that and some of the VR stuff we see at Sundance, probably some of the movies too, right? What are you working on, Sherlyn?
I mean, yeah, like I only just cleared most of the Samsung stuff off my plate. I still have some Samsung work left to do, which is the video. I know people who are our YouTube viewers are like, "Where's your review video? It's coming. Be patient, please." Because I
takes a while.
Time. I didn't have any time to put this review together, basically, right? Because we had a public holiday. Great.
We had a holiday, and also Samsung gave you guys hardware right after CES and announced it right after CES. Like,
don't even get
annoying
on Samsung because
that's annoying.
I'm mad at them.
Yeah.
But so just cleared that. Still have a little bit of Samsung work to do. Still have some regular like new stuff to do. But yeah, Sundance stuff I'm trying to start getting through and sorting out and figuring out a plan with you, Devendra. And then also I'm still testing out the Amazon Halo. Don't forget. You
keep breaking the tone warnings on the Halo. It's like I don't know what to do with this girl. She's not listening to me.
She's not a person. She's got so many emotions. And more reviews like that, and also like other briefings have just been coming up. It kind of just never ends because I got an invite from in my inbox recently. So I'm pretty sure I was hopeful there might be a bit of a lull coming up because Samsung is done. But no, I'm pretty also. Just so you know, a lot of people were asking, is there a new Galaxy Z Fold? I'm pretty sure we'll be seeing that. I'm making a wild guess, but kind of also going like, I'm pretty sure that's coming in February. So stay tuned for that. Yeah, that's my work I'm working on.
That's your work you're working on. Thank you. And let's move on to our pop culture picks. While I have you, Sherlyn, what do you want to talk about or recommend this year for us or this week?
I have seen a lot of crap. And this might be too early to recommend, but I don't know if people know this, but my favorite Avenger is Vision.
Your favorite Avenger? Okay.
My favorite Avenger is Vision, and so
he's a cool dude. Yeah.
WandaVision is the show I'm going to recommend this week. I watched the first 2 episodes. It was really, I blazed right through because each episode was barely like 25 minutes long.
With like 10 minutes of credits or something, but yeah.
Oh god, the credits are so long.
So many credits.
So it stars, obviously it's got Scarlet Witch and Vision, and it's basically set, it seems like it's an old TV show like I Love Lucy and Bewitched from the 60s, I guess.
I believe we cannot call her, so the way this works is that we cannot call her Scarlet Witch because that is an X-Men character, and at least in the MCU she is, because actually I believe in one of the crappy X-Men movies they also had a Scarlet Witch too, but that's a Fox title. But anyway, it is, it's who we know.
It's Wanda Maximoff.
It's Wanda Maximoff, yeah.
Played by Elizabeth Olsen, and Vision played by Paul Bettany. And I love me some Vision, and I love seeing Vision in his true human form, even in black and white. And this is so far just mostly a comedy. Really, it feels like I grew up on Bewitched. I don't know.
Yeah. It is Bewitched. It's Bewitched. It's the Dick Van Dyke Show. It's I Love Lucy. It is all those classic sitcoms, and I am shocked by how much they leaned into
hard into it
of doing this. Like, it's surprising. I can't say I didn't need 2 episodes of being stuck in an old sitcom, but it's fun. It's funny.
It's been surprisingly fun. I didn't think I would like it because I'm not a big fan of old-timey black and white stuff, but Elizabeth Olsen's acting is pretty incredible in this. I'm like, she sells just the perfect amount of incredulous at the situation, but also fits right in with that almost Stepford Wives sort of situation. Great, it's just great. And then Paul Bettany, I mean, Vision's just bumbling around as Vision, so
he's great. He's pure Dick Van Dyke energy over there. I also really like Kathryn Hahn in that show, who is an actor who I love, and she has appeared in all sorts of stuff. But here, she is channeling that annoying 50s neighbor housewife vibe, I think perfectly. So
okay,
it's a fun show.
My last word on WandaVision, it will be this, right? It's still in 2 episodes, and it's still in that sort of weird, strange black and white situation, but they are going to break out of it, and that's what I'm really looking forward to seeing more of, because We know what happened in
Something's going on. Yeah.
You know what happened in Infinity War with Vision, right? Before I went to watch Infinity War, I told everyone.
Wait a minute.
People were like, "Who's your favorite Avenger?" I was like, "I've decided it's Vision." They went, "Oh God, who's gonna tell her?" I was like, "Oh no, what happened?"
Yeah,
guys. So I'm excited to see if this is all a figment of her imagination or if Vision is truly back because of some sort of time change or whatever.
Yeah,
that's what I'm looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, I'm sure. I like the construct of the show, and I'm looking to see like, okay, clearly they're either in some sort of weird simulation or something, or is it something they put them like? Is it something Wanda put herself in just to keep herself safe from the rest of humanity, or does some supervillain have them connected?
Exactly.
One thing I kind of like imagined when I was talking about this on my movie podcast is that what if they use the end of this to be like, this is the reveal of the X-Men in the MCU, because we are waiting for that, and I think they've already said that they're working on a way to like eventually bring X-Men characters into this, because now Disney has the Fox stuff, and Fox had MCU or had all the X-Men stuff for a while, so now's the chance for them to start bringing some of these characters. I don't know if I'm ready for that. I'm not sure if I want to replace Hugh Jackman in my heart as Wolverine, because he was always my favorite X-Man, and after Logan, that was definitely his farewell to that role. But there are people I can imagine, like a Joe Manganiello doing a really fun Wolverine, and he's already kind of done stuff like that. The werewolf guy from True Blood, and he's a fun, nerdy guy. He's already he's older. He's like mid-40s right now, but you could do a good 10 years worth of like Wolverine movies with him.
He would be a good Wolverine. Yeah,
I love him. He's a guy known for hosting D&D campaigns in his basement in LA with other like notable Hollywood stars. So I love him just for being
I love him and his wife
nerd. And true nerd. Love it over there. Well, thank you for the fun picture, Lynn, because my pop culture picks, not so fun. Not so fun, because I saw 2 documentaries this week, and this week, we celebrated Martin Luther King Jr. Day on Monday, and I saw the documentary MLK FBI, directed by Sam Pollard, and this really dives into the FBI's just sheer obsession with destroying Martin Luther King, and it is quite something. Like, you've probably heard like, oh yeah, the FBI just didn't really like him, but no, like it was like a full-on drive and case by the FBI to destroy MLK as somebody who was becoming a bit of a an actual thought leader for Black Americans. And they bugged his phones. They had people listening to him in hotel rooms, like right opposite him. They did a lot of coverage about affairs he's had with women, and their plan was to like basically destroy him as a moral authority. I think the documentary does a great job of bringing in new insights and just seeing just how far the FBI went in this respect too. And it brings up an important point. We talk a lot about Martin Luther King Jr. today, in reverential tones. I think history has really looked kindly on everything he stood for. But back then, most of America hated him, and most of America supported the FBI and what they were doing. And the FBI has always had like a really good PR spin, that they were protecting America. I grew up watching the X-Files and Silence of the Lambs and everything. It's like I didn't learn about all this stuff until much later in my life. So I think this documentary is worth watching just to kind of see what the extent to which the FBI, a federal organization, spent decades just trying to destroy Martin Luther King Jr. And they can't say anything specifically about his assassination, but there are certainly elements where they're like, did they just not try to stop somebody who was trying to kill him, because actually it's in their best interest? So anyway, I think it's really worth watching, especially after this week, especially after goddamn government organizations like ICE were tweeting out respect to MLK, and everybody was like, "You're ICE. No, you were actually directly opposed to everything he stood for." But thank you for that, I guess. I also saw another documentary called The Dissident by Brian Fogel. He did the Oscar-winning documentary Icarus a couple of years ago, and this one is all about the story behind the death of Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi and Saudi Arabia's involvement in that. And just, hey, this is worth watching too, because it is it's a dangerous time for journalists. They're getting arrested, they're getting killed all over the world. And this kind of dives into what was happening and the reactions from his fiance, people who worked with him, and the exploration of police in Turkey too, who were like, they were investigating this and just watching Saudi Arabia lie about what happened to him. It's a gruesome story. It's terrible what happened to him. And I think it says a lot about what Saudi Arabia is doing as a country, but I think everybody should watch this documentary just to see like the full scale of how hard they went against him too. And hey, it turns out it's not that different from how the FBI went after Martin Luther King Jr. So I think that parallel is definitely there. So those are my picks. Maybe for something more fun, because it's been a very serious week for me. I think after the inauguration, we got some great Bernie Sanders memes, and I think that's probably one of the best things we got, because he was everybody was socially distanced out there outside, and he was there huddled up in just like his dad jacket and fuzzy wool mittens, and just like chilling, just like, so
good,
not giving any crap. So love the memes. There's one of him on the Spirited Away train, one of him next to sad Keanu. There's one in every respect. Fits everywhere. I love the Queen's Gambit one. Oh man.
There are a lot. I saw a Colbert one where he's on the Colbert and Stephen Colbert tweeted it out saying that okay, we'll turn up the heat already. Our video producer Luke Brooks also made one that has a sort of shout out, I guess, to I think I'm going to end things. I think that's what the movie is. There's one from Bird Box. So many. They're all great. And what we want you to do, dear listener and viewers, is send us your Bernie memes. Hey, if you've been making them, I'd love to tweet them out. Send them to us. We could all use a laugh. There we go. We have
There we go. Yeah.
We have a Bernie on the meme. The hottest of all the memes.
That's amazing.
Oh, but yeah, there we go. If you're not tuning into the live stream or watching this on YouTube just yet, my dear podcast listener, you really should consider.
You can actually go back and just look at this segment and see those clips, because it'll all be up on YouTube, folks. Well, I guess we should just wrap it up for now. Thank you, Sherlyn. Yeah,
of course. All right, so that's it for our episode, everyone. Thank you as always for listening. Our theme music is by game composer Dale North. Our outro music is by our very own Terrence O'Brien. The podcast is produced by Ben Elman. You can find Devindra online at
Devindra on Twitter, or talking about movies and TV at the /filmcast at /film.com. We just had an episode where we were talking about Bacurau, which was my favorite movie of last year. That's in our After Dark segments right now. So check that out. I think you may have to become a Patreon subscriber for that. So that's your little tempting there to pay to listen to that podcast.
Devindra's side hustles. Well, if you want to live tweet WandaVision's new episodes with me, let's watch it together, guys. I'm on Twitter at Sherlyn Lowe. Email us your thoughts, your memes, and your feedback at podcast@engadget.com. Leave us a review on iTunes, please, so everyone can look at your memes. And subscribe on anything that gets podcasts, including Spotify.
Woo!
All right.
All right. I think we have time for more Q&A if we want it.
Yeah. If you guys are down.
Yep. I think we can do like 10, 15 minutes of Q&A maybe.
So, okay, I have something that's less tech, more movies. Why did that Steve Ewan movie Minari just like disappear? I thought it was like
it's not out yet.
Oh, it's not actually out yet.
It's not coming until February, I think. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it was technical premiere at Sundance. Okay.
So that they could actually run for the Oscars, yeah.
But it's like, didn't it get hung up on a weird thing because it's like not quite foreign language, not quite?
That's a whole other thing, because it was the Golden Globes who didn't count it as a foreign, or counted it as a foreign film, even though it's by an American filmmaker about Americans. But yeah. Yep.
And the Golden Globes are by the Hollywood Foreign Press, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Golden Globes suck. They're not great.
I am looking all the way up at the live chat. And yeah, some questions about whether the 888 has integrated modem versus the 870. Yeah, so like the 888 has 5G on chip. The 870, I don't believe it does. It's similar to the 865 where it's a discrete modem. You have to get the X55 or whatever 5G chip you prefer or the phone makers prefer. Do we have any other questions? Were there for from you, Ben?
Well, just one thing that Steven Saha said, which is like living alone and having a VR headset is very confusing because like when you put it on, you think like, oh wow, somebody could be in my house right now. And I would not know about this. I am completely like basically deaf and blind to my surroundings.
Yep.
I can I am in a different world, and I could imagine that it's even scarier. Like, let's say you are a female tech enthusiast who lives alone. That's got to be terrifying.
Well, there's that, and there's stories about when you go do a VR demo. Let me tell you guys, it is kind of a creepy thing because you are often in a room with other people or one other person just doing this stuff, and maybe they're like back talking with you back and forth. But if it's like a more dramatic personal VR thing, it is awkward to have somebody in that room with you because yeah, it's not safe, and I can imagine it's even worse for female journalists. Yeah.
It's also a whole plot point in Upload, by the way, where like the character has her VR goggles on and someone like breaks into her house while she's talking to her boyfriend in the show. So
your decision tree is, can it be linked to Robbie Amell? If yes, link to Robbie Amell. If no, irrelevant.
Excuse me, we were talking about Vision today. I don't know who Robbie Amell is.
I don't think it's on Netflix anymore, but Paul Bettany stole A Knight's Tale.
Like, he stole A Knight's Tale. I mean, that movie rules. That movie absolutely rules. Yeah.
My boo. Daniel, I don't know how to pronounce that last name, but what city to find out what 10 a.m. Eastern would be in England? The time difference between here and London, if I'm not wrong, is 5 hours. So
you can also always Google it. Always Google it, folks.
But 10 a.m. Eastern is also 3 p.m. I just want to flex my time zone knowledge, Dev. Stop.
You said.
I think that was.
I thought it was 6 hours.
Of like
6 hours is Europe, but London is a little closer, so it's 5.
Okay.
I think that
I know too many people in those different time zones.
I think it's a pretty innocent question because it's like, okay, what if you don't know your U.S. geography that well? Like,
that's totally fine.
You know, Americans don't know world geography for shit, honestly.
But what I do love is that you can be like, hey, Google, what is this time in ET, in London? And it will just spit that. You don't even have to go search through those crappy websites. I also really like the world clock on the iPhone. I found that really useful because I keep that updated with the normal time zones we typically deal with. So that's helped me because figuring out European time zones, especially like the difference between, was it London and then Germany and then also Berlin time and then Taiwan time for other embargoes, like it is annoying and very tough.
Who has family in Singapore? My best friend is German, and our best coworkers are in the UK.
Wow, you're public right now. Everyone's hearing you. Yeah,
I mean, that's a whole other thing. Like that could be tied to the colonial history of Singapore and everything. Like, whew.
All that.
Anyway,
there's a lot going on there.
Phantom Raven asks, can you do Wi-Fi calling on the unlocked S21 phone?
You should be able to, but
why not? Yeah.
You should be.
Is Wi-Fi calling? I think Wi-Fi calling is kind of terrible.
Everything now. No?
It's in everything, but also I've never found that it works very well. Even when I'm like sitting next to my Wi-Fi router, at least for the past phones, I've tried it for the past couple of years, it tends to introduce more problems because if you're on that call and it gets a bit of cellular connection, then it doesn't know how to like hop across sometimes. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Sorry, I saw a question that caught my eye. Kylo Tech asks, Hiroshi Lockheimer said he looks forward to other partnerships with Samsung. Any guesses what might be in the works? First of all, Kylo Tech, thank you for watching the interview. Appreciate it. It was a fun interview for me to do. But yeah, I wouldn't be. I mean, Google's teamed up with Samsung on a lot of things, not the least of which being a foldable version of Android. I would not be surprised if that's part of what Hiroshi was hinting at. I also think he was maybe also hinting at some other collaborations across One UI and Android. But probably the biggest of the mentions would be, I'm pretty almost 98% sure we're talking foldable here. Yeah.
Sure.
Let's see. Well, okay. I think well, it doesn't seem like we have that many questions. If anyone else has questions about the Galaxy S21, the S21 Ultra, or Bernie memes, what are the best Bernie memes? Send me all
the best one I saw, which I couldn't find in time for the podcast, was the one of him in his studio set. And it's just like, okay, quiet for what's it?
Room tone. Quiet
room tone.
For room tone.
That's
because
right.
That's when you have to be absolutely silent so that the microphones can pick up all the background noise. Hilarious.
Yeah, we usually do that right before we go live on YouTube. Yes, Medicare for all. Change my. Oh man, it's the
let's not do the Chris Christie one.
That was during the government shutdown, wasn't it?
Yep.
That was that story. That he wanted to hang out on a national beach, and he was the only one.
Well, he was also hanging out on the private, national beach, I believe, next to one of the mayor's houses or something. Yeah, or one of the governor houses over there.
We have a few comments and questions in the chat that I want to quickly get through too. Phantom Raven brings up a very good point that their cell service at home is non-existent, and that's why Wi-Fi calling is very important for them.
It's good. Yeah. If you need it. Yeah.
Yeah. Kylotech asks, why aren't they making Google Messages the default everywhere? Look, on our chat with Hiroshi, he mentioned that I think it depends on some of the conversations they're having with carriers, and in the US everything is so dependent on the carrier, but it seems like they're still having these discussions and that it might be coming soon. So stay tuned for that. Daniel asks a good question about, and this is when we were talking about time zones, I wanted to clarify, ET is a confusing thing to say as opposed to what time is it in New York. Definitely, because ET could apply to so many cities, and I totally get why you were asking for what city. And Daniel is asking, so when someone says 10 a.m. Eastern, does that always mean 10 a.m. at ET Center? I honestly thought if someone in ET close to CT said 10 a.m., they would mean their time, not ET. So no, it doesn't change depending on where you are. 10 a.m. Eastern is 10 a.m. Eastern, even if you lived in I don't know.
Ohio,
that would be impossible to determine if there was gradual time changes.
Yeah.
So if you live in Ohio, because I think Ohio is right at the line between Eastern time and Central time, because once you go over the line to Illinois, then you're on Central time, but it's only an hour back. So in Western Ohio, do you end up is it a weird little mix? Probably. This is something that would definitely be interesting for one of those minutia science podcasts.
It's very annoying, and also
unfortunately we are not one.
Yeah. By the way, daylight savings is another issue and another wrinkle in all this. Arizona does not observe daylight savings, so dealing with just them and people we know our Jess Condit and Engadget. She doesn't have to deal with daylight savings, but I think coordinating with people in Arizona gets to be kind of tough because of that.
Yeah.
Arizona is relatively libertarian, isn't it?
Yeah. We don't need your freaking clock changes.
Okay. I think we're pretty much done.
We're done.
Right?
It doesn't seem like we have that many more questions coming up. So
all right. Thanks, folks.
If you're shy, you can send them to us on Twitter or email. Remember that. And if you have any more questions, stay tuned. For all our updates as we continue to review these phones.
Yes, please rate, review, subscribe. All that fun stuff because we want to keep doing this show. Thanks for joining us, folks.